let's go to Shihab Ratansi. Shihab, what are we hearing now from the US president?
Explosive Truth Social post from Donald J. Trump. I shall read it out. The United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Sammy?
Shihab, that is quite a statement. I want to make sure we heard it and understood correctly. This is the US president saying that US forces have captured the president of Venezuela and his wife and taken them physically out the country. Is that right?
That's exactly what he has just said. The United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. That is the Truth Social post that you posted just a minute ago.
I imagine, Shihab, I know the answer to the question of, I guess they're not saying where he's been flown to and what is to happen to him.
It's interesting, though, that he talks about it having been done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. So they're still sticking, I would think, then, to this narrative of the cartel of the Suns, this rather bogus construction, which actually, in fact, was a CIA operation years ago with the Venezuelan government before Hugo Chavez. But if he's putting it in the context of law enforcement, clearly this is being put into that narrative of Nicolas Maduro being the drug dealer par excellence of Venezuela. I think Maduro gave an interview just a few days ago, maybe a week or two ago, where he said, look, I have the biggest proven reserves of oil, I have gold, why would I be a drug dealer? But clearly the US administration is still running with this narrative, even though their own drug enforcement administration says that that simply isn't true.
At this point, does that indicate, again, don't want to ask you questions that I think I know the answer to, but is that the end of it? Any signal that this is the end of the US military operation then?
Well, what's replacing Maduro is the question. Do they have then? I mean, this is what they hoped.
I was afraid to ask you that question as well. I was going to save it for Lucia Newman, but go ahead, Shihab.
Yeah, I mean, clearly what they'd hoped, and actually Maria Corina Machado had, and the reports came out actually at the beginning of the year, had said, look, we have a plan. We can replace him immediately. Just put the stranglehold on, and we'll get everyone to defect, and everything will be fine. Perhaps they believe this. We simply don't know. But if this is a decapitation strategy of removing Maduro, then one would think that they have a plan to follow up, or there is someone to replace him. But you're right, maybe you should go to Lucia.
Let me ask the question from this angle, which I think it makes sense to talk to you there in the US about. Have we had any indications, or are there any indications, that the US is mobilizing some kind of effort to, shall we say, install someone or to facilitate the way for Machado or for an alternative to Maduro? Have you seen anything from your end?
Just what we've all seen, the Nobel Prize going to Machado. There's been this coordinated effort to present her as some viable alternative, again, despite a lot of the evidence that we see on the ground. There must be a great deal of confidence that they have a plan, one would think then, if they have removed Maduro. But all the intelligence that we've had and all the people you've been speaking to over the last few hours have found it very difficult to find any evidence of any coordinated, credible alternative to Maduro. Even elements of the opposition have been against any kind of U.S. regime change operation because, frankly, it immediately almost disqualifies any new government from appearing to represent the Venezuelan people and not a very resource-hungry neighbor to the north.